A series of bizarre and gruesome murders rocks New York City, each bearing the unmistakable mark of Spider-Man. As the city turns against its hero, Peter Parker grapples with a terrifying possibility. A hidden darkness within him, a monstrous side he never knew existed, is awakening. The rain hammered against my mask, each drop a cold reminder of the city's fear, a fear that was now directed at me. I perched on the edge of a skyscraper, the city lights blurring into a kaleidoscope of colors below. It had all started a week ago. The first victim, a known criminal, was found strung up in an alley, his body drained of blood, a grotesque parody of my web cocoons. The police, even my friend, Detective Yuri Watanabe, initially dismissed it as a gang-related killing, albeit a strange one. Then came the second victim, another low-level thug, found in a similar state, wrapped in webbing, drained, and marked with a crudely drawn spider symbol on his chest. The media had a field day. Spider-Man, hero or horror, the headline screamed. I was baffled, horrified. I had no memory of these events. My nights were a blur of patrols, stopping muggings, the occasional supervillain fight, and then back to my small, cramped apartment. Sleep was a luxury I rarely afforded myself, but these blackouts, they were new. The third victim was different. It wasn't a criminal, it was a security guard, a father of two, found in the same horrific state, webbed, drained, and marked. The city's fear turned to outrage. The public, once my adoring fans, now saw me as a monster. J. Jonah Jameson, predictably, was having a field day, his voice booming from every screen, every newsstand, condemning me as a menace, a threat to the very city I had sworn to protect. I started to doubt myself. Could I be doing these things? Could the stress, the constant battles, the endless responsibility have finally broken me? Was there a darkness within me, a hidden part of my psyche that reveled in this gruesome violence? My only solace was Mary Jane. She believed in me, even when the evidence seemed to point to my guilt. "Peter," she'd say, her hand gently stroking my cheek, "I know you. You're not capable of this." But even her faith couldn't completely silence the whispers in my own mind, the whispers that grew louder with each passing night, each new victim. The blackouts became more frequent, more intense. I'd wake up in strange places, my suit torn, my body aching, with no memory of how I got there. My web fluid, a unique formula I had painstakingly developed, was being used in these killings, a fact that the police, led by a grim-faced Yuri, were quick to point out. One morning, I woke up in an unfamiliar alley, the stench of blood heavy in the air. My hands were stained crimson. I looked around, my heart pounding in my chest, and saw a discarded newspaper, the headline screaming, "Spider-Man strikes again. Fourth victim found." Panic seized me. I stumbled out of the alley, desperate to escape, to understand what was happening to me. I found a payphone. Yes, they still existed in some parts of the city, and called Mary Jane. "Peter? Where are you? Are you okay?" Her voice was filled with concern. "I don't know," I stammered, my voice trembling. "I don't know what's happening to me. MJ, I think I'm losing it." "Just come home, Peter," she pleaded. "We'll figure it out." But I couldn't. Not yet. I needed answers. I went to the one person who might be able to help me. Dr. Kurt Connors, the brilliant scientist who, despite his own tragic transformation into the lizard, remained a trusted friend and mentor. I found him in his lab, amidst a clutter of beakers, microscopes, and strange reptilian specimens. He listened patiently as I recounted my story, the blackouts, the victims, the growing fear that I was the monster the city believed me to be. When I was finished, he was silent for a long time, his one good eye fixed on me with an unsettling intensity. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and grave. "Peter," he said, "I've always admired your strength, your resilience, but the powers you wield, they come with a price, a burden, and sometimes that burden can create fissures." "Fissures?" I asked. "Oh, what do you mean?" "The spider that bit you," he continued. "It didn't just give you powers. It altered you on a fundamental level. It merged with you, became a part of you." And perhaps, he hesitated, as if reluctant to voice the thought, perhaps another part of it is trying to emerge. Something darker, something primal. His words sent a chill down my spine. Could it be true? Was there another entity within me, a monstrous reflection of the spider that had given me my powers? Dr. Connors suggested an experiment, a way to probe my subconscious, to try and identify the source of the blackouts, the nature of this other. It was risky, he warned, potentially dangerous. But I was desperate. The experiment was a blur of flashing lights, strange chemicals, and the hum of machinery. I lay strapped to a table, electrodes attached to my head, as Dr. Connors monitored my brain activity on a nearby screen. He injected me with a serum, a concoction of his own design, intended to suppress my conscious mind and allow this hidden part of me to surface. As the serum took effect, I felt a strange sensation, like my mind was being pulled in two directions. Then, the darkness came. I found myself in a strange, distorted version of New York City. The buildings were twisted and contorted, the streets were covered in a thick, viscous webbing, and the sky was a swirling vortex of black and red. And then, I saw it, the other. It was a monstrous creature, a grotesque parody of Spiderman. Its body was a mass of writhing muscle and chitinous armor. Its limbs were elongated and distorted, ending in razor-sharp claws. It had 8 eyes glowing with a malevolent red light, and a gaping maw filled with rows of needle-like teeth. It was me, or rather, it was what I could become. The creature lunged at me, its movements impossibly fast, its claws tearing at my suit, at my flesh. We fought, a desperate struggle between man and monster, between the hero I wanted to be and the darkness that threatened to consume me. The battle raged through the twisted cityscape, a terrifying dance of death amidst the distorted skyscrapers and web-strewn streets. I tried to reason with it, to understand it, but it was no use. The other was pure instinct, pure rage, pure hunger. As I fought, I began to understand. The other wasn't just a monster. It was a part of me, a primal force that had been awakened by the spider's bite, amplified by the stress, the trauma, the constant burden of being Spider-Man. It was the embodiment of my darkest fears, my deepest anxieties, my repressed rage, and it was growing stronger. I awoke with a gasp, my body drenched in sweat, the metallic tang of blood in my mouth. Dr. Connors was beside me, his face etched with concern. "It worked," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I saw it, the other. It's real, Peter, and it's powerful." He explained that the serum had allowed him to glimpse into my subconscious, to witness the battle that was raging within me. He had seen the other, the monstrous entity that was responsible for the killings. "You need to control it, Peter," he urged. "You need to find a way to suppress it, or it will consume you." But how could I control something that was a part of me? How could I fight a monster that lived within my own mind? The city was in a state of panic. The police had issued a warrant for Spider-Man's arrest. The public, once my supporters, now called for my capture, my imprisonment, my death. I was alone, hunted, and losing the battle against the darkness within. Mary Jane, bless her heart, stood by me. She didn't understand what was happening, not fully, but she believed in my inherent goodness. One evening, she found me on our rooftop, staring out at the city, the weight of the world on my shoulders. "Peter," she said softly, "talk to me." I confessed everything to her. The other, the killings, the experiment, everything. I poured out my fears, my doubts, my despair. When I was finished, she was silent for a long time. Then she took my hand, her touch a lifeline in the storm that raged within me. "Peter," she said, her voice filled with a strength I didn't know she possessed, "you are not a monster. You are the best man I know. You are Spider-Man, and you will find a way to beat this." Her words, her faith in me, ignited a spark of hope within the darkness. She was right. I was Spider-Man. I had faced countless villains, overcome impossible odds. I could beat this too. I had a choice to make. I could succumb to the other, become the monster the city feared, or I could fight. I could find a way to control the darkness, to integrate it, to use its power for good. It wouldn't be easy. It would be the hardest battle I had ever fought. But I knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within my soul, that I couldn't give up. I couldn't let the other win. I looked at Mary Jane, her eyes filled with love and unwavering belief, and I knew what I had to do. "I need your help," I said, my voice hoarse but determined. "I can't do this alone." And as the first rays of dawn broke over the city, casting a golden light on the skyscrapers, we began to plan. The battle for my soul, for the soul of Spider-Man, had begun. But this time, I wouldn't be fighting alone. I had the one thing the other didn't. I had love. I had hope. I had something worth fighting for. The fight would be long and hard, but I knew. I had to win, for Mary Jane, for the city, for myself. Weeks turned into months. The city, scarred but not broken, slowly began to heal. The killings had stopped. Spider-Man, once a pariah, was cautiously welcomed back as a hero, though a shadow of doubt lingered in the public's eye. I had managed, through a combination of meditation, Kthor Mansik Shrinkla, rigorous mental discipline, and a modified version of Dr. Connor's serum to suppress the other. It was still there, lurking in the darkest recesses of my mind, a constant kappa grin, suppressed roar beneath the surface. But I had learned to control it, to keep it caged, or so I thought. The change was subtle at first, a fleeting flicker in my peripheral vision, a whisper in the silence, a cold spot in my warm apartment. Then, one night I found myself standing on a rooftop overlooking the city. I had no memory of coming here. My hands were clenched into fists, my knuckles white. I looked down at my hands and a gasp escaped my lips. My suit, my iconic red and blue suit, was gone. In its place was a new suit, black as night, with a large white spider emblem that seemed to writhe and pulse with a life of its own. It looked familiar. Panic clawed at my throat. I recognized this suit. I had seen it before, in the depths of my subconscious, in the distorted reality where I had battled the other. It was the Symbiote suit, a relic of a past encounter, one I thought I had buried forever. But how? Then I heard it. A whisper, not in my ears but inside my head. A voice, both familiar and alien, that sent shivers down my spine. "We are here, Peter," the voice whispered. "We never left. We've been waiting, learning, adapting." I looked up at the city lights, at the millions of lives spread out before me, and I saw them, not with my eyes but with a new, terrifying awareness. I saw the darkness in their hearts, the hidden desires, the Kepa rag, Caparag, suppressed rage. The others saw it too. They need us, Peter, the voice continued, a silken whisper that promised power and oblivion. They need our strength, our protection, our justice. The other was no longer just a monster within. It had evolved, influenced by the symbiote, by the darkness it had encountered. It had found a new purpose, a twisted justification for its existence. It saw itself not as a destroyer, but as a savior, a dark guardian. It was no longer just my other half, it was becoming something more. I tried to fight it, to push it back, but it was too strong. It had been growing in the shadows, feeding on my doubts, my fears, my anger. It had learned from me, adapted to me, and now it was offering me a choice. "We can save them, Peter," the voice whispered, a seductive promise in the darkness. "We can be the hero they need, the hero they deserve. We can be complete." The reflection in a nearby window showed me a distorted image, a figure in a black suit, with glowing white eyes and a sinister, too-wide smile. It was me, and it wasn't me. The last thing I remember before the darkness fully embraced me was the chilling realization that the other wasn't just a monster. It was an idea, and ideas, unlike monsters, are very hard to kill, especially when they begin to make sense. The city, my city, was quiet that night, unaware of the silent war that had just been lost, unaware of the new protector that watched from the shadows, unaware that the 8th day had begun. And on that 8th day, Spider-Man didn't just save. He judged, he cleansed, and the whispers began to spread, not of fear, but of awe. The whispers spoke of a new kind of hero, a necessary evil, and me, I was finally free, finally at peace, because we were finally one. Don't worry, New York, we are watching over you now.